So should I log in yet or not?
You can log in through Zoom, but just make sure you turn off your microphone and your speakers.
No, I don't know how to do that. Where's my speaker?
Now I'm already here. Or it's not, no, or it isn't necessary. Is anybody going to attend by?
No, but I-
So it probably isn't necessary to log off, because I've got it here, and it's being recorded.
Yeah.
And I can watch and see if anybody does log on, have a question.
So I can just get out of
So
this.
you just-
Okay, that's just fine. Let's prep for this, so we didn't screw it up. Okay. So we're just waiting for Dawn. I hope everybody, the fun reading proposals.
Oh. Yeah,
What's that?
he's going around this way.
That's Dawn?
No,
Somebody else?
Can you go to the exit? He's gonna have to go all the way around and catch him. I wouldn't be careful if you get around the front door and walk in there, so.
Wait for. So we're all here except for Evan. And you all know Dennis. Our town manager. He'll be in for about a half an hour. Before we get started with the RFPs, I just wanted to a motion from our task team to approve the minutes from August 4th. Okay, all in favor? Aye. So moved. Okay. The big discussion, as you know, is the RFPs that we got back. Before I launch that, Evan did check in with Island Institute just before he left here a half hour ago, and they're having a meeting on Monday morning to review planning grants. And they've had people out, people with COVID, but anyway, it's supposedly going to happen Monday morning. So you might want to follow up with Christopher to see where you all are on getting another installment. Any questions on that? Okay. So Evan did send his own summary this morning of just points on the bids and a potential meeting with Consolidated, which is launched a subsidiary called Fidium. And I don't know if you can look at that. We can. I'm not sure it's necessary for our conversation. Maybe read the first part, particularly in terms of the bids. He just summarizes. But I see the bulk of today talking about the RFPs and what we want to do. It would be best if all of us were, in agreement on a provider. The cost will be less, and we will have more scale that way. But it might not go that way. So I think we'll just open it up for opinions for what you all think of the proposals. We had one from Axiom, which was the lowest bid, and came in where I think we thought it would, and really fits the budget. We had one from Mission Broadband based in Bangor. They are only a consulting firm. Axiom also does planning studies and is a provider in ISP. Mission Broadband is a consultant, and they've been doing some of these around. It was a lot more comprehensive than I think what we thought we asked for, but I'd like your impressions. And the third one I had never heard of, from Minnesota. They looked like they had a good background, but I'm not sure what value it would add. So thoughts from everybody in terms of how to approach this and what your impressions were.
We actually had a withdrawal, right, from Cascade.
They never.
But I thought, right, but I thought they, again, under normal RFP processes, they withdrew. They said they didn't have the bandwidth to do it.
Yeah.
So that left at least one other one that we had solicited.
We did solicit Mission Broadband.
Okay, there was Mission,
And then there
Axiom,
was,
Casco.
Casco, and there was, what's it called, the big company. They do build outs and they also have a planning department. They never actually got back. Whenever we tried to contact them, it was totally on back burner. I mean, they weren't even looking at it.
Okay, so
What's it called? Everybody knows. I can't remember.
whatever it was.
Whatever.
But so we in essence did or didn't hear back. So we basically closed the pool, right? So now we have one unsolicited, which is your hometown fiber, which had reached out to me and I said, well, we have an RFP that we've literally just issued that if you're interested. And so that was sent. They did provide a proposal and there's some logistic concerns, but at least we have 3 in hand and 2 that basic one was non-responsive, which is a different category than Casco, which said they didn't have the bandwidth, so we can close the loop on that before we proceed. I noticed in here the question regarding his next note, which is consolidated. Consolidated, in essence, is an incumbent. I thought as the study was going on, part of our process should be a willingness to invite all incumbents to let them understand what we're doing, why we're doing, rather than have to fight them later down the road.
Probably still have to fight them.
Well, true, but we all know those little subtleties, but reality is we want to be inviting. And Fidium is a new to market approach for consolidated. I still haven't looked at it to figure out what that real relationship is and where the funding came from and all that stuff, but it is something that we need to do once we get through the wicket on doing the study. There are a number of other things, whether them doing interlocal or not, or what the deal is, but
Yeah,
I was glad that we received the responses and that they were reasonably comprehensive.
Other impressions or thoughts about this? And Fidium is a subsidiary of Consolidated, a new subsidiary to be very aggressive on fiber.
Well, they've been on the TV.
Yeah.
Fidium also has a physical location in Rockville. Yeah, we have better. Lots of weekend building. Fidium on. There's some. Not an advertisement. But Adam agreed with you. I don't know if you read his email that we would be getting to consolidate. You don't have to go through this process.
Good. And I think we need to extend that same thing with Spectrum or Charter or whatever. Right, since that's the inevitable, let's make it part of our plan to do that. We don't have to do it right now, but that's just a suggestion that's on the table.
You guys want to pull up to the table? We got an issue with do you know everyone?
Familiar faces.
Mary Ellen Barnes, Lincoln County.
Brown, Jason,
Hi.
Robin,
Great.
right, the courthouse first. They wanted to seat me as a juror, but I said I had more important business.
So we're just reviewing the 3 bids that we got. We had one from Axiom, well, from Mission Broadband and from, what do they call it? Town Broadband, out in, Minnesota, which was unsolicited, but they contacted Don and we got one from them. And we're just going around with first impressions. Dennis is only with us. Dennis is our town manager. And, he's only here till 3. And question mark for you, what are you wanting to hear impressions or what would you like to know?
No, I would like to hear everybody's thoughts on this before we have this.
Yeah, I favor axioms. We've had experience with doing the Lake County Regional Planning. They did a preliminary study for us as well as the president. And they kind of know us. Carl and myself and Evan had a conversation with him early on when we formed. And he seemed very willing to work with us. And his offer includes that he'd go above and beyond what he's proposing, that questions we could resource him afterwards. And he's relatively local, so I'm in favor of actually himself.
And the price is right.
And the price is-
That helps.
So is this open floor or both?
Okay.
I agree with you on the axiom. I read that report, I actually read it today, and I thought it was really well balanced, very thorough. Had a lot of good insight in it. So, they would be a department that I would think would be good to work with.
I thought the axiom was like very directly responsive to the RFP, whereas the others, I think, addressed issues that we didn't ask to be addressed. And are double or triple the price.
Well, the reality is, let's get real. The result is exactly the way it was written and expected. And that was what I was trying to neutralize and make it a fair competition with giving everybody the same information with which to bid. The result is, as I said, as expected, since this would be a second wave for Axiom in this market for us. So I'm glad that it did. There was a margin of error there, and if they are willing to do additional services, there's some latitude I think we can have regarding a contract with them for those services. Because of some of the vagueness of the RFP, that's why your hometown fiber and Mission threw in some other things that normally are asked for. So, or they think they need to know it in order to clarify. I mean, but I think that, we have a good responsive bid from Axiom, and, even though it hits the price point, I think it contains all the things we're looking for.
One thing we want also from a bid, one thing that's useful about doing the plan, even though we would recognize that a lot of it's going to be boilerplate, they all do that, in terms of repeating stuff, and then they do the specific analysis for the town. We put it up on our websites. It helps to educate the community. Mark doesn't, if you noticed in there, he doesn't pay as much attention to how it looks and, editing as the others. But I don't think that matters at all. I mean, I would point that out as a weakness, and it's minor. It's not a substantive weakness. But if we go with them, I would doctor it to get it right on the website. And I know that's exactly what the rock people did, because he did a study for them and they edited it. So I'm just pointing that out as, if you look at it, it's a little rough around the edges, but he gets all the substance, which is the most important thing. The other thing I wanted to point out, he is both a provider and a consultant. The others are not. The others are consultants. Personally, I don't think that's a drawback. I think it actually helps us in terms of the substance of what we're looking for. But somebody might see some kind of conflict of interest, some people like to separate it. So I don't know, I just thought I'd bring it up for any discussion, if people want to react to that.
My reaction is both positive and negative because of the ethics, conflict of interest piece. There are a couple things with Axiom and what they're involved in and how it kind of muddies the water a little bit, but I don't think there's an issue in this solicitation and their response.
One thing about the other proposals, the non-excellent proposals, is there might be something to be learned from what they are offering to do that we didn't think we wanted. So there might, I mean, that it might be worth studying those proposals just to make sure that these aren't things
Right, or the question whether we want them to do it. I mean, there was a lot, I think, in the mission, not mission, maybe it was mission, no, maybe it was more the Minnesota people, you know, of working with the community and helping them prepare materials and the outreach campaign. That's absolutely essential. But do we want them to do that? Or if we need to spend money on it, do we want to find people locally to help us with it? That was my reaction to it, because we do need all that. The other thing that we will need is a real build out of the network, which in a way, Mission was entering that space. And why it's more expensive, but I think I was telling Tommy before the meeting that this is testing the waters to see, at least for Wiscasset, whether there's an appetite for this and some reality about what the cost is. And I don't know, Dennis, we thought that would be an important first step to see if you really want to spend more money.
Yeah, if you don't have community engagement, the waste of your time.
Yeah.
So, I think that is certainly a very important piece of what we need to do here.
Yeah, and Larry's driven that home, you know, if you don't know the price, that's exactly what people are. Now, we may not have exact price out of this, Larry, but we will be a whole lot closer than saying, well, it's gonna cost a lot of money. So that was the idea, do it in steps to test the waters and the appetite. Maybe I already said this, or I said it to Tommy, there's going to be grant money available to do more intensive network build outs. That's what that's where you know. And Dennis, Evan was mentioning that, and that's what I've read too. That down, you know, the next rounds will have money for more intensive.
Absolutely, yeah,
Plan.
following next year, yes.
So to me, it makes sense to do this level study, a lot of it, we'll see the same language in our study as what we saw in the Sears report study that I circulated. I have to say, this study has gotten more complex because I read the Southwest part, not Southport one, and it wasn't as good as the Sears report one. So he's getting more in depth each iteration that he does. And we'll see a lot of the same stuff, but he will give us the specifics on what it's going to cost each town and various assumptions, whether you want it broken down only for the whole town or whether you want to break out for the areas that aren't served, because the aren't served areas are the ones that are going to get priority for any funding grant. So that's what he did for Sears Support. And it gives us a better idea of what an initial target can be. Other comments, other thoughts? Peter, I haven't heard from you. Are you in sync with all? Yeah. So if we go with Axiom, the best, in my view, the best scenario is we all stay together on this. And we get the cheaper price and we plan as if we're going for grants for 3 towns. As we've said before, we get priority that way. We get more points and it's a better way to go. You have any comments?
No, I think you're right. I think the state is increasingly going to be looking to multi-town applications on something, so. How long is the, Mark's work or the work on? Okay,
That's, boy, I can't remember what he said or if he did say. One of the things to look for though, is he's got a lot of work right now. Some of the towns that he would have done actual build outs on are some of the ones that, did not get their referendums passed for municipal broadband. So when I talked to him about almost a month ago, he said that, he was all of a sudden really eager to talk to me. But in this latest round, just getting him to, he did not immediately get the proposal and he forgot, or he was just too busy. Somehow work has caught up with him, so we're gonna have to probably hound him to make sure he's on target for this. So that we get what we need.
Well, that's one of the questions that, I don't know if you noticed this, Kibitz in here on the side, but the next step, right? One of the process elements that we would like to do is do a statement of work associated with this. It would incorporate their proposal for guidance, but may specify additional things. For instance, you mentioned that there were things in your hometown fiber that you'd like to try to incorporate into whatever we're doing, right? Well, one of the things is.
Not sure in this one, but.
Correct,
yes.
but it's one of those things that we can nuance into the axiom document as part of the statement of work. I think we'd all be better off. I also wanted to note that, you know, I am very pleased that we, whether we've said it directly or not, we have consensus that axiom is our recommendation.
Yeah, does anybody not feel that, they would be our best friend?
And I would like to withhold judgment, at least from yours, before we actually meet with our committee, separately, but
Yeah, fair enough.
it seems pretty obvious for me, but I want the whole committee to be on board.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
So I think as noted by Mary Ellen and yourself, that the funding process will potentially give us favorable treatment for being 3 towns, not one, or individuals as one. So I think that I look at that as a bright light. So
So yeah, if you want to take us, yeah. do a-
I didn't know I didn't know.
Where we go from here.
Right, that's why I asked the next step. So how are we planning? We're gonna spend the next couple days. Crafting a statement of work, because we've had a number of issues come up in our town regarding. Defining things like that, like we have committees that we've set up. And we need better clarity. We've done that. We've established a charge for. In specific instance, the broadband technology.
Do we have some flexibility in making some changes?
Oh, yeah, I'm sure, we could sit down with them and actually, yeah, sure.
And that seems so.
We put it in the terms
The RFP.
of the solicitation that, you know, we reserve the right to make modifications.
That's right.
Well,
And
if you-
that-
I mean-
well, like you said, the local fiber, that kind of makes sense and something we really should be talking.
If you want to take a stab at a first draft of, statement of work. And start to kick this off, even while we're waiting for. And I don't know, Dennis, but Dennis has to make the final decision about this.
Yeah, but there's no rush on this, so
Yeah.
if you need to take it back to your own town committee. To review these and come back, but that's fine, because I don't think we set any kind of deadline.
No. But it gets more play the more we talk about it and, going at a different level. Now we're ready to engage a contractor and we're moving ahead on this, so.
So we're banging up against your clock. Is there anything that you wanted to lay on the table regarding concerns or direction?
No, I have to take my direction from what you guys do, because I haven't been involved in this process. You guys are the ones that are doing all the legwork here. But in terms of getting signed off on it, at least as far as Wisconsin goes, you've got your, take what time you need to get it done. I'd rather take the time and do it right.
Yeah.
Than rush through it and then find out what we're gonna get something down the road, so.
One thing, this is kind of what you're saying, maybe, the action proposal does not enumerate deliverables. What they're actually gonna hand over.
Right.
We have an idea what it's gonna be.
That is, we can assume that it's gonna be like the other one they did,
Mhm.
but,
Yeah, they do it in terms of a work schedule. so you
they
can-
say what they're gonna do, but what it is, we're gonna have on how we'll handle when they're all done. that we can
Well,
go.
that's a good point. So we can say, can you be more explicit? You will get,
But that's a statement of work, I guess.
yeah, I mean.
Right, we can
calendar
layer in the
now-
work products
Yeah.
or deliverables accordingly to that schedule.
Yeah, of course, I've seen your other plans, so I mean, it looks like. To me, these are deliverables, but we can make it more explicit that we want stated like that, or just make sure that we know how it's gonna be delivered. What form, I mean, I know they do all kinds of charts for amortization schedules and things like that. To show you what, the financing is.
Well,
based
I
on
mean,
the cost.
we just have to think of it in terms of, this is gonna be all of our ammo for making the case to the community about doing it. So we need to make sure that we ask for all the right stuff. Make sure we have the things we need. I'm sure they'll be available for, if we need something that we didn't think of, we could probably say, can you please do such and such for us?
Yeah, I mean, I think if we were, I don't think we were ready for the first round, which is what, this fall. We're not gonna be ready.
Yeah,
So, if we were going for that, we would need a more comprehensive engineering study, which we're not ready. I mean, we're just not ready. And we haven't done any of the community outreach that, unless you guys have, Wisconsin hasn't, except for the survey and trying to get some recognition that we're involved with this.
How many surveys did you get back?
Okay, I don't know, Evan was,
I thought it said somewhere in the neighborhood of 80, 90, and that was 2 or 3 weeks ago.
was it only that much?
That's a bigger return than I would have expected.
Yeah, and we didn't, I don't think we pushed it that, I mean, our biggest one was at the polls. We had a couple of West organizations we contacted, but I think that was the biggest return from the polls.
Everybody I talked, I was there for like 3 hours that afternoon, and everybody I talked to was quite positive. I mean, there's some people who just walk by. We can't start that. But anybody that had any interest in it at all was very.
Yeah. Especially not having a monopoly in town next step. So I think we could take a stab at that certainly and say, okay, we wanted explicit what these things mean and what we're going to see on paper. But that was one reason I think I attached this Sears Court study so that you could see what he actually produces, and if we want something different, we should, we should talk with him when we negotiate contract.
is she gonna prepare the language of the contract, or are we?
I think if we do a contract, I don't know. You mean who does the contract?
Yeah.
Everybody's got their boilerplate. Usually, we would just.
Usually they do something for a boilerplate. I would assume he's done this, he's already got something that you
Because we've
could
got
use
some.
for a starting point anyway, it's just.
Yeah, okay. So, so I would also look at that study to see if that's what you want, if it's enough, or we want to make it more explicit in what he will do and when. The when question, obviously, it depends on how fast we move this along. But I think that, personally, I think that's going to be more the stickler than anything. Just getting the time of his team and making sure he's focused on it and delivers it within a reasonable point, period.
And he put a date on it, I think at the end of November.
Did he put that?
I don't even, yeah.
Which is reasonable.
One of the other ones. we did.
Yeah, that's reasonable given everything going on right now. The work that we have to do.
It looks like he's assuming it's gonna start in the beginning or middle of September. So, Would,
Yeah,
It almost sounds to me like there's other people standing off to see how some of these are going to turn out. So if he's doing some of the first ones, he might do better work for us than he might.
well, he's already done a number of, he's done he's done some of the small municipal broadband. He mentions what he's done in here. And he's doing the new towns and, the ones that got the federal grant, Somerville, Washington, and it's Jefferson, right?
I think that's what I was doing.
Oh, LTI is doing Jefferson. Okay. So, he was about to do Southport and that got cut out. And he's doing Georgetown. And there are some others too, some of the islands, but his market is basically small ones. Which a lot of the bigger ISPs don't want to tackle. It's not big enough.
Well, that's my point. He has more to prove here than he does in those places. If he does a good job here, that's going to show his work to other people.
Yeah, oh yeah, everyone he does shows he does, absolutely.
So I haven't seen the axiom on what, do we have an exact of what they're gonna do of, you know, the statement of the work, or is that?
Yeah.
That
he-
is
he has a
negotiation.
proposal.
His proposal has many of the components that we would want to lift into a statement of work.
Okay.
Right? We just need, so. Yes, most of the elements are there. We just need to make sure that they're
We met the RFP. So
one of the strategies.
Yeah.
Was that a copy?
Yeah, that's a copy.
So it's kind of important.
So,
I didn't make that either.
oh, that's fine, yeah, okay. Yeah, I had trouble getting all the documents. Evan sent some of them, I sent them again, and,
Oh, definitely. Your bundle was great,
oh,
right? It had all the necessary pieces in it.
yeah. So,
I couldn't.
so how we move forward,
Mm.
will you be meeting for Steve?
the committee will meet soon this week, not this week, probably next week. But the select board doesn't meet until September. So we might not get final
Well, we're not going to get
dust
it.
off until probably mid-September.
It's-
Well, the only funds at risk are what we already agreed to. So Dresden is ready and will be ready at the end of the month at our next select board meeting to move on this. And therefore, we can take the lead at, as you suggested, drafting a statement of work that lifts a lot of the information out of the proposal.
I'll come back. I'll let you know.
Great. Do you have any flexibility to get a special, to get a special meeting?
Yeah,
So maybe by the end of, we only have a couple more weeks, but. by the
yeah,
end
I
of this
mean,
month,
I can probably, I'll talk to them.
because I mean, our select board obviously has to approve any contract.
Oh, yeah.
They already, they already did that commission.
Oh, that's right. Dennis is negotiating. That's right. I forgot that from last time. I wasn't at that meeting.
Yeah, and then they didn't act on anything related to this last meeting because it was. We ran out, it was 2 hours long and they ran out of time. And we're do it if we have time. But we're hoping that they're just going to sort of delegate that to the committee. The sorting out of the contract, the choosing of the vendor. With looking at the language of the contract, just to present it to the select board to sign. Yeah.
Maybe, Mary Ellen, you had the experience working with Axiom on the 710 study. Was there anything we should know in terms of managing the contract?
No, it all worked out really well. Of course, this was back in 2017, 2018, and it was at certainly a high level of things. So I think he's only gotten better in the details that he's providing to you guys, and you're sort of at a different point as well. But no, he engaged all the towns. The towns were at different places in terms of do we want to go door to door with our survey? Yeah, some people, for example, wanted to go door to door because not everyone had internet, and they also want to be able to explain to people. And other folks, just did the online version because it was easy for them to get out from the town office and things like that. But no,
No, it's not much better. I mean, looking at it, it's very, very simplistic, the first one.
I think so, because community planning in 2018 is a little bit different than what it is today, because of the progress that we're making, so.
Yeah.
No, he was very accountable on that.
Yeah, and I mean, any of them will show up in meetings. They see that as part of their job to help sell it. Mark knows a lot of people. Yeah, I know it's embedded in this stuff locally. So,
And I do think that because of his knowledge and because of the fact that he's also a provider and he's very following, connect me and now the main connectivity authority, that he knows a lot. So I'll probably give you a lot more wisdom than some other people.
yeah, mission is local. They come out of the industry, so they probably have some of that too. In terms of the Minnesota group might be fine, probably better in Minnesota where they know the turf better, but I don't think you need to go there. So when, Don, when do you think we might have a statement available?
Okay. We've got a meeting on the 22nd. Next month, yeah.
So. We should be ready by the 29th.
By 29. And Tommy will talk there, and then Dennis is the decision maker here, so I think he's just gonna listen to our opinions. Go forward. And I mean, once we get this started, and once you all get your other grants, we should also at the next meeting start talking about the digital equity piece of this, because I think that will actually help us solve this if we are on two paths here to show the importance of it, and some people will respond more quickly to the digital, getting everybody access and involvement in this, that it will have more relevance to certain populations here. So maybe we can put that on our agenda for the next meeting, if we're not overwhelmed by, picking up the pieces or having to, go through this. We might put it on. If we don't make it, we don't make it. We put it off.
Carl, could I, mind if I share about that resiliency?
Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
that's a
so
good
we
idea.
got-
Absolutely.
So this applies to broadband is part of this, but it's a bigger initiative. But I was in a presentation yesterday about this community resiliency initiative, and it was given by somebody from the Kennebec Land Trust and also somebody, a state agency whose name escapes me. Had a funky acronym name, but at any rate, the gist of it was that there are grants being made available by the state in, I think, 2 or 3 years worth of 2 cycles per year, $50,000 per cycle per town, to do a variety of things that has to do with resiliency in the community related mostly to climate change, but broadband infrastructure, communicating with citizens, that, people being able to do telehealth, that sort of thing are all part of the calculus of that grant program. So that might be something, that might be a source of additional funds for doing outreach or
Yeah.
whatever. There might be other things that we need.
Can you
20,
send
30,000.
a link to that program?
I will, yeah.
Is that something you're looking at?
A very variety of people are working on it, but yes, no, I think there's like 70 different ideas for towns to discuss and decide what
It's a
they want to
huge,
prioritize.
it's a huge.
There's a lot to choose from, but Westport's doing something with some of the second towns, and then I think Cass's going to be working with maybe, I'm not sure, okay, and probably Southport on at least have a series of meetings to try and talk about what the priorities are.
And this is coming from,
Comes from GOPID, the Governor's Office of Policy
Yeah.
and Innovation for the Future, something
That's-
like that.
That was the
Yeah,
other person,
yeah.
that was the other presenter.
Yeah, go for it.
Go.
here or federal?
No, it's a statewide, but she's not, I think it's Brian Arnett or somebody like that, that's, or Sarah Curran. There's one of the staff people from North Oakland.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yes, that's, I believe you can.
But it's the understanding that broadband supports so many initiatives. And so much around what is important to count localities and counties it's the undergird for all of that, to the communications. And I think that's a point. Why do we need it? That's one of the points we touched on that at the last meeting. And I did do some nosing around on how, what it means for communications, particularly in towns, and better, more efficient management. I'm gonna have to go more deeply in that, but we were talking at the last meeting about how you sell this. And Larry brought up the fact we should go to each town department and show what the benefits would be with robust fiber all over town, and the ability to communicate easily and use sensor technology. And I'm not an expert on this at all, but I know that's the smart city movement can also be a smart town. And that's really similar to this. In looking at different applications, making the argument from different angles.
We're not gonna know what the questions are after resolve this.
Yeah.
I mean, if you just go to the biggest meeting we have and start having questions, you're gonna have answers, you're not gonna be able to answer questions. You go to small groups, get a bunch of questions, you can get ready to answer them.
It will be either, absolutely, either in terms of our learning and progress.
So we can get the curve.
But we're gonna have to ratchet it up because the community education piece is totally critical. And if we're not getting that kind of response or interest, I mean, we've got to have a real, powwow about will this be viable? Because there's got to be a community investment in this, not just sanctioning it, but with money. So
Well, that was the issue that I had with the MCA call last week. There are a number of things that are evolving, morphing, whatever. The stated $700 per citizen per town as an absolute was a little disconcerting.
I didn't follow that. That was what you had to put out.
That's what the towns need to cough up. So,
700 per person.
yep. So, but as they admit, they had different criteria as little as a month ago, and now it's changed and it's likely to change again. But the important thing is that meetings like that, we intend to be on because of the shifting sands.
Well, there's so much at flux, really. I appreciate the point there. Yeah.
What meetings?
It's the MCA, the main connectivity authority.
Oh,
The last one is the one that bothers me, authority.
Well, they probably wish that it wasn't there, but they're trying to sort out how to spend all that money that's coming
Yep.
in from the Fed. So they're trying to figure out about buckets and timing of those things. So as you suggested, they're still getting engagement about, is this a good idea? Is it the practical criteria to have? So again, they're open to the public, they're Zoom meetings, they're also recorded. So if you have a lot of time for Netflix or no other kind of interesting meetings, this is just another.
Oh, it's a great meeting and
Yeah.
but it did have some things that, as an authority standpoint, when whatever it was, I think it was 20% of the attendees are from the authority itself, that it didn't have a big enough community. So we intend to add that to our
That's great.
docket and make
That's
sure.
Well, I think the study is gonna help residents involved, because we're gonna have more people, a little more rural. And I think from what I've got, the connectivity authority, is the more rural we were, the less people that don't even have.
Right, it's that unserved
Are
versus
gonna
the
get
under-
funded quicker.
Yeah, unfortunately.
and this is based legitimately, as they stated, this is baseline data. You need this to get to, get to the plate. So
We gotta get it done.
we got to get this nailed down and move reasonably quickly. Because it's going to take a while to complete that study.
Do we have ideas now? I mean, we got to agreement more quickly, maybe not more quickly than I anticipated. I'm glad, on who the provider is. I don't know if there's, Richard or Peter, if you have other thoughts about this.
Not at the moment.
Okay.
My original waiting for the information they're gonna give us.
Yeah.
Or they're gonna get it.
Right.
My original take on the bids was to go for the one in the middle, because that's what I would do at home. But I really do feel that Axiom addressed the planning RFP much better than the other two, and so there was no problem for me.
So once we get Axiom on board doing what we want them to do, and we agree that they're gonna be doing it, what can our town committee be doing? Talking. Wisconsin's got a lot of organizations and groups that you can go to and talk to. Dresden's got like none. But we need to be talking to people. And I'm feeling like I don't know what we're gonna say. I don't know how we're gonna say it.
I'm gonna give you a suggestion that I gave to our committee, and they took it. He said, we're gonna go to the fire department first.
We got one of those.
Yes, and every town's got one. They're a younger group of people, so they may be a little bit more savvy than what we're talking about. And it's been my experience as being a firefighter for 40 years, that they're not bashful. Okay, they'll ask what's on their mind, and you'll get questions you won't get anywhere else. And that gives you something to feed on for your next presentation.
Yeah, I mean, you may need a door-to-door strategy. You've got some, do you have some civic groups informal?
How many parents groups connected to the schools?
Well, there are a couple things there, but we haven't sat down and said, okay, we're gonna do this, and this.
Yeah.
Because we've just.
And in fact, us sitting next to each other, I've already started a deck
Talk.
on communications, and a deck being a presentation that, for those that, and I tend to use acronyms or short things, but, working on a presentation that introduces a lot of the broadband topics, but also all the spindly legs we have of, we need to complete the survey. We've got, I think we only have 12% of our town is covered from survey responses. Sue in particular has done door to door. Or Susan, excuse me, has done door to door, and we may want to adopt more of that. We had a recent political party event, and broadband was represented there, so they had information that was disseminated. We have some QR codes, so we're trying to get people to give us more of the information we need, which again, the study itself is baseline, and this augments that, takes care of some other boxes as far as getting them checked. But as far as how we break it down, the elements that are important, which is, emergency management, communications, telehealth, all that stuff, we're going to go through it literally at our next meeting to make sure that, we have, shall we say, sub-leads that are going to be focusing on that, and hopefully we'll broaden our collaboration.
There's a lot of resources on the main broadband code.
Mhm.
And did I send that link out in this main broadband? You can just Google main broadband coalition. They've got a lot of stuff on what other towns have done, education, we're in the same boat. We haven't really launched anything formal for education. We'd love to know your thoughts on that, Dennis, the best way. We were talking about internal towns of government because, people in town government can benefit from the technology and the efficiencies that it's going to create, even more so than what probably we have now. Larry was suggesting the fire department, but if you have ideas for us, because that's the next stage, getting this out there and being ready when we get the final figures for price.
Yep, maybe something the community center can help out with. And the town we're redesigning our website. We're working on that currently. So that should be hopefully rolled out within the next month. And be a little more user friendly than what it is now. We just signed up with a new service yesterday called Text My Gov, where people are gonna be able to text a keyword to the town to get information about something, and it will automatically send them something back. So we can, as we're designing that, once you come up with some educational material, we can put that on there, they can text broadband on their tablet or whatever, and it'll link them right to where they need to go.
Yeah, a lot of towns have put up a broadband website. And
Yeah.
with all that stuff right in one place.
Yeah, and then set up a separate website, or set you on a page on
A
the new,
page on the
yeah,
website.
on the new website, so they can have that available. Just
Yeah, and some of them, I mean, if you start,
It's enormous. And I don't think that-
if you look at some of the towns that are further ahead, I mean, they've got very fancy websites on broadband and lots of wonderful information.
But you're missing the point. There's more people in the town of Shasta, my age, that may have a computer,
or right now.
They don't use.
but they don't,
You know,
and texting something that means nothing to them.
right,
And you've got to be able to reach them. You're gonna need them to
Well,
roll.
that's only one way of doing it. I mean, there.
it's just another tool, it's not the only way.
No,
We're
no,
just
no, no,
add-
no.
We're adding more and more tools to try to increase how we get information out to residents.
I think skywriting has been.
That's right. I didn't think, well, where is it, that's something up there, computer, that care about broadband.
Well, we discovered. it
That's what
already.
people are recommending.
We do need some talent on communications.
Pretty hot,
Richard has somebody in mind.
not really that much. It's
Some of these
Great.
millennials that just are incredibly good at
They
this
think
stuff.
we're talking about, don't. include
Um, we do have to think seriously about and study what other towns have
it. I
done
come from.
to get an
I
effective
need.
communication strategy.
So we will have at some point in the fairly
Who's
near
gonna do
future,
for them?
a position here in the town office. At least part-time as a communications director. We have the money for a treasurer, we have to hire one for a couple of years, I've actually been filling in that role. But it's a little bit much between myself and Catherine trying to do it, it's a little much. So I'm probably just going to shift something, we probably shift her into that role, and then hire an assistant for me and there. And part of what they're going to deal with is just.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think we'll have the tools, but
Outside was stuff. Before we get started, might have.
So any more thought right now about what our next steps are, because we're gonna have some downtime while this is. We need to ratchet up the next stage while we get this bit out. Don, while you were gone, Don was saying, they're gonna take a crack at a statement of work converting the. And probably won't have that till the 29th. This is that what you just said. Did I write
Yeah, we're meeting on the 22nd. We should have something by the 29th. Our select, and our strategy there is also our select board meeting is on the 30th. So we want to have it ready for their approval at that time.
Right, so that,
Yeah.
that statement, do you want that to go to Axiom to answer questions or?
As we go through it, if we have questions, we will. That's one of them. We didn't have. It's a little thing that's a little quirky. We didn't have a proposal manager that has the. The control point. That's one of the challenges that we had with the RFP, that. There were really 6 points of contact and the potential for 6 documents running around. But if the question I have is, who is the anointed one for communicating with Axiom? Is it Evan? Is it?
Well, probably,
Since how
Evan knows.
he's not here. I would
Yeah.
certainly-
Volunteer for the day. That is not.
There's a connectivity booster where he's in the middle of all this. I would think Evan would be it. I know Mark for
Certainly
years.
has more.
So, but he has more of the technical ability for that. So I would think that would be good.
So we'll reach out to him. We'll figure out, we'll have something earlier than the 29th.
Well, we have a meeting scheduled for 25th for our normal.
Well, we'll have it for the 25th.
Yeah.
Yeah. If I may.
Okay, so the statement, review of the committee by 25th.
Yeah, I was just using our calendar of events, so, but if it's 25th, then we'll have it for the next time we meet.
So you're basically drafting something for all the committee members to review.
That would be good. And what else? Are there other suggestions how to jumpstart thinking about and planning about communications and outreach? Susan, you've had some background on this.
Well, I have, I think the problem areas are gonna be the isolated people. And those are the ones who really need to be contacted because they don't have any resources. But they don't have resources, so how do you contact them? And so I think in those areas, a door-to-door approach may be the best in the underserved areas. And school's about to start again. So maybe we can make an effort through school organizations. And
The world of kids riding the bus.
there's not a kid within 2 miles of my house, so I don't know.
The two on near us ride the bus.
I don't know what the ratio is.
They're in short supply these days.
Yeah.
Lincoln County.
Well, part of our conversation on Monday is going to be about, okay, when we talk about communications, we have the print, mailing, door to door, which is all
Yeah.
the physical stuff. We have our Dresden communicator, which is a limited distribution document. We have a community center in Bridge Academy as another
Mhm.
way to have some increased exposure. Facebook, of course, having or planning town hall meetings, for lack of a better term, town hall meetings. And then, of course, we're doing similar to Wisconsin. We're refreshing, revising, revamping our website. And that will have a page, at least a page, so. We'll have all the links to all the other important topics as well, but we're just coming out of the blocks on that. We've got, a bit of ground to cover over the next couple of weeks to make real progress there.
I think I did send some materials that when we met with Nancy Smith, I think on that notice, I sent some material she suggested for how to start organizing this, how you communicate. Part of the strategy is one-to-one communications with key people in town who are community leaders. And I do think we have to strategize that, particularly being ready after we get the numbers, because everybody, as Larry has pointed out, and others, as we've run into them, what's it going to cost? But I have some in mind for Wiscasset, but I'm sure each town has people to target in that way. So that's one other level of thinking about the personal meetings with people and trying to get them on board. And
And perhaps other town committees too, because the more exposure you get, if other people who are in key positions know about what's going on, they're gonna talk to people they run into.
Yeah, as long as it's a positive exposure.
Right. And if we can get the fire department on board, that's, we've got a name.
And would you gonna get an honest response?
Yeah, and
I think you had mentioned, you have a newsletter that, if you put a little blurb in there every other week, gets people thinking.
All
Like
of the
advertising.
ADX.
right, yeah, it just doesn't.
yeah, we've had stuff in it. Well, we have a Chamber of Commerce, we put it in there. We've had coverage there, but it has to be consistent and, just.
Well, if we could get somebody in Lincoln County who's in this gas group to register, they're all on board with what's going on.
But maybe we want to be a little farther along before we start that.
There was I gather not such great editorials for the blue paper when Southport was under attack. So we have to figure out the best messenger for that. Well, I can nose around for some of the resources. I will send the link again to the main broadband coalition. All you have to do is say, yes, you want to be a member, and then they'll, you can get access to all that. And there is a community, what time is it? It's usually 11 to 12 on Fridays. Where they call it, Institute.
Let's talk broadband, so any number of people show up with any kinds of questions, I don't know whether you find anything, but.
You get on that list too. I'll try to circulate that. Crystal was doing, Island Institute is going to be getting out of the broadband business, so, because so much is now in connectivity authority, and we're moving on to other stuff. So, but they were hosting it, and part of their staff has moved over to the connectivity authority. But that's one resource, what's on their website. I follow some of the policy stuff, so if stuff comes up there, I try to flag it, like, what was going on with the Alliance for Quality Driving. But I think sharing strategies on communication is going to be our next big issue to tackle. So any other thoughts or things you want on an agenda next time? Our meeting is Thursday, the 25th. We will have the statement of work that Don and Judy want to work on.
The Dresden Committee.
And we can move forward more, I think, also with thoughts about how to get this out. And by then, hopefully you'll have money, maybe, from Island Institute. And we can also talk about moving forward on digital equity. It sounds like a lot, but I don't know, my gut says it will help us to do that. It's rigid, right?
It is.
Yeah, the other part of this is who can use broadband, who has access, who can afford it. And are there ways to plan proactively intended to provide more resources for people to use the internet at all ages? We were supposed to have pretty aggressive programs, but a lot of people fall through the cracks.
Well, I have a small consulting business. I work off a hotspot, if I don't keep doing things, the next thing I know is I'm offline. It's not the greatest.
Yeah, a motivated community.
You got it right there, yeah. My wife is right behind me. Do it.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know how pertinent this is, but I was looking at the job for LLB. Well, it was a job you could do from home, and they had a guideline of things you had to have. And if you didn't have broadband,
Right.
you couldn't take the job.
And there's more and more of that. Plus, what I'm also finding from younger friends in town is that there, one woman who works exclusively at home remotely, she sent me links to various certificate programs, which don't take that much. And she said you can get much better jobs for people not not particularly high education levels. If they learn what you need to know for these platforms. And I think part of the digital equity should also be a workforce focus to some degree, aside from just basic skills, like this is what you can do with it. It's another option of how you can live in rural communities and make a better living than you would otherwise. So I think we can explore that as well. Any other closing thoughts, or we're not there yet, Dennis, but we're gonna get you something.
Come to some meetings anyways, just to keep my face. The airport meeting last night, I had no bed for a while.
Circulate.
That's
Many of us got out of the habit. That's good. Okay, great. Well, we're moving forward.
Always do it on Robert's rules.
I forget the formality.